Greetings, YouTube. Today we're looking at the Pathfinder Adventure card game Ranger Classic class deck. Contains 109 cards. Now, I'm actually not into card games a whole lot. However, I'm always looking for ideas and illustrations. So, I thought that these haven't even been opened. These have. We'll look at these first. I may break this into two videos just because there's a heck of a lot of cards here. Well, they're mixed up, so we're just gonna have to roll with it. Now, what I like about cards, though, however, is that you can come up with ideas and use them as illustrations. So, for example, he's got the entropy shield, which could be obviously used as magic items. Ophidian armor, the stanching buckler, arrow catching studded leather. That would be handy, as long as it's not catching them in the bad way sense of that word. Fortified leather armor, classic wooden shield, magic leather armor, just plain old leather armor. Now, real leather armor would have been harder than this. This is very supple. Leather armor would have been more like, it would have been in the classic Kerboli, which is essentially boiled leather. When you boil leather and you shape it and form it properly, it becomes almost like plastic. It's really quite fascinating. The Venomous Bolt, good spell. Forest Walk, I'm assuming that's a spell as well. Divine Blaze, it's got spell written all over it. Endurance. Obscure, Holy Light, Cure, Beast Skin, that's a nice name. The Shock Greatsword +2, the Dancing Mace, that's cool, I like that illustration, it's a good mace. Vicious Double Axe, that's silly. I'm not saying you couldn't have a slashing double-ended weapon, but if you're going to use the axe shape, you're going to want one. You're going to want a far longer shaft, and you want the second one facing in the opposite direction. You want these spaces to be clear. Better yet is a crescent shape with the edge facing that way, so it's more like a pendulum, the pit and pendulum vibe going on there. That's a much better design. This is silly. The Human Bane Gladius. That doesn't look anything like a Gladius to me, or Gladius. That just looks like a dirk or a short sword. The Flaming Longbow, that doesn't look like a longbow, but it's a bow. The Adamantine Poignard. See, I always think of adamantine as being black. You know, absolute, just black. Yeah, you can have it be flat black or, you know, kind of like a semi-gloss, but it's not glossy, but it's black in my book. The Rune Chill Hatchet, that's a battle axe. That's not a hatchet in any way, shape, or form. And there's a dagger here, which makes it far more dangerous to the user than, yeah, silly. The Invigorating Kukri. At least the Kukri looks right. The dagger. It's dagger-ish. I wouldn't want to have to push that in or pull that out of a body. It's going to catch like a son of a gun on ligaments and things. The Wounding Spear Axe. Yeah, I think you need to make that longer if you have a spear axe. There's a dwarven weapon that has a point like that. That looks more like that's a battle axe. That's not a spear. Frost Longbow. That at least looks like a longbow. The Disrupting Rapier. That looks like a rapier. The Mongonche. That's a little far. I think the real ones they would about come out half that distance. That's too far. Yeah, I don't think like that. The Great Club +1. See, that's just a club. That's a one-handed weapon. That's not a great club. That's actually a mace. It's not even a club. That's a mace. It's got a heavy weight here with points on it, and then a wooden shaft. That's a mace. That's not even a club. Deathbane Light Crossbow. Okay, kind of cool crossbow-looking thing. The Returning Throwing Axe. It's very fantasy-like, but at least it looks like vaguely like the size of a throwing axe. The Repelling Pike. I hope that's being in forced perspective, because a pike needs to be much longer than that. A pike is going to be like 15 feet long. The Dog Slicer. It's a Falchion, folks. The Warhammer, which is always looks like Mjolnir, even though real Warhammers had much smaller heads than that. The Quarterstaff. Fancy Quarterstaff, but a Quarterstaff. The Mongonch. This is much closer to the real world. The Longsword, which really doesn't look anything like a longsword at all. The Longbow. It's more of a recurve, frankly. Alright. Light Crossbow. Dagger. It's a very fancy dagger. The Bastard Sword. The handle's a little too short for my taste for a Bastard Sword. A Bastard Sword is a hand-and-a-half sword. The Wrathhack. That's her name, and that's a silly weapon to be using, dear. What we got here? Harsk. Okay, if that's the full shaft, that's a good size for an axe. Okay, that's correct. That's not bad. That axe isn't bad either. That's a little small for my taste for a polearm, because let's face it, you want a polearm to be. And these are stat cards for some of the characters we just looked at, or yeah, these are all stat cards. I don't need to look at in detail. Oh, we have one more item, which is the Reflecting Buckler. Alrighty, so we're gonna call this good for this video. We'll look at the next pack in another video because I don't want to make this too long. But this has been the Pathfinder Adventure card game Ranger class deck, and this has been half of the cards that are in said deck.